Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. Hub and spoke. I've mentioned that before. I'm going to just say it clearly. You live in Leipzig, like him, and no more than 250 kilometers, as he says, any acquisition away there. So you can drive there in 2 or 3 hours and drive back. Okay? So we believe in as soon as you say hub and spoke method of management, all of a sudden you go, the managers, the professionals will, fuck this guy, you know. He knows because most of the big acquisition models that have failed didn't have the hub and spoke. They were 1,100 miles over here, 2,000 miles over here, and you can't get around. I mean, we've already got a mentee, bought a plane, he's a pilot, any excuse to buy a fucking plane. I mean, a small little plane, Cessna or something, so he can fly. So his hub and spoke is 700 kilometers. In my opinion, if you're watching, it's just an excuse to buy that fucking plane. You know, because all the pilots want to fly. You know, I mean, they may not fly, but they want to fly. So if the first excuse they have to buy a plane, they normally get one. The next thing that's really important is that he had a downtime. But part of that downtime, if I remember correctly, was his job that he's paying the bills with had an upsurge in business. So, I mean, he had to get his job upsurge in business, so he had to put QLA to the side. But we've got most of the guys, 55 or 60% of you guys, either are going to school or working full time. And to get it done. And then the other 40% or so that either quit their job, don't have a job, or their significant other supports them or whatever, they're doing it full time. Okay, so you can do this. The fact that he was a senior financial analyst actually was detrimental to the process. Because his financial presentation at the board, and I've told you this, Andres, was as good as I've seen in 20 years. I mean, it was fucking like NASA kind of shit. And the board members said, well, a lot of work, and they had nothing to do with the presentation. A lot of work obviously went into this. And then I said, not me. And it was the presentation to explain to the board why these acquisitions were the acquisitions we should pursue was extraordinary. Extraordinary. You don't have to be that good. Extraordinary. But German's overkill. So his was extraordinary. His was like a PhD thesis. But he made a point about the Articles of Incorporation. They don't call it that in Germany, but the equivalent of Articles of Incorporation. I didn't like. And because it constrained him too much as CEO. And I said that instead of 1 or 2 or 3 million euros, whatever the limit was, I wanted it to be 5 or 8 million. So he could pursue acquisition candidates up to, I think, 8 million euros. And the board had originally not wanted that. They wanted it small because they're careful. And even though they all like him and he's a great guy, he might go crazy and go to the bank, coots, and run off to Tibet like some of my other mentees have done. So the day before the board meeting, and they had worked on these articles for weeks. The day before the board meeting, he went around and he met with the board members, as he said, 2 by phone, 3 in person, to explain why it's not going to be with the agenda that they saw and how there's a change. Now, I tell you to always meet with the board, before the board, no matter what the agenda is, because you want to ask the board members, can you support everything we're voting for? And if they say yes, that's fine. If they say no, well, then you give them a resignation letter. All the votes at board meetings are 100% in favor. I say, how many are in favor? I don't even ask how many are opposed. If all the hands go up in favor aye, there is no opposed. Because it's really important. When you go downtown to court and you're a public company and the shareholders are suing you for you didn't do proper governance, you want to be able to see the whole board voted with you. The whole board was supporting you. The whole board was in favor of the shareholders. Because in those days, the only shareholders are you. You don't want any mixed votes, 8-6, none of that bullshit. 100%. It's a dictatorship, some people would say. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I don't believe in dictatorships. Unless I'm the dictator. But yeah, question.
Does he intend to remain a CEO? Or is he just an interim position?
Interim, yeah. He wants to find... I mean, being CEO is no fun, really.
So once he gets to a certain size, he'll bring...
Correct. Yes, sir.
If you see somebody disagreeing, then you just fire them on spot? Find somebody else?
But you should know that before the first fucking board meeting. It shouldn't take you to the first board meeting to know the guy wants to stick a knife in your back. But now, I take that back. Some of you, because you're naive, and remember, share your toys with Johnny, all that bullshit, all that is in your brain. You can't get rid of it overnight. And so, well, I know we kind of disagreed when we had coffee last, but I'm sure he'll vote for us or for me. No, you ask him. And tomorrow when we talk about, you send out the agenda 2 weeks before the board meeting. 2 weeks. And you ask for comments. And normally, half the board will send back comments. Half won't. Okay? And then you send the comments to your chairman. What do you think? Remember, he's supposed to, you know how they say, I got your back, I got your six, and all that horse shit? Well, your chairman's really got to have your back. Otherwise, you're not going to last. You'll be out the door. So he'll say, yeah, that's a little too, just like as I did. Let's change that. Let's give you more authority. You can buy up to 8 or 10 million euros, whatever. And then, so when they walk into the room, there will be the agenda on where they're supposed to sit. And they will have recognized it because you showed it to them 2 weeks before. In this particular case, as I've already mentioned, he had to go around and explain to them why the agenda looked different than the agenda they saw. That's because I was the last one to see it. I didn't like a couple things. I told them to have it changed. Then the lawyers have got to go back and change it all. And so, but it's there, the right document. You want to vote on the fewest things humanly possible on your boardroom agendas. Few, not 87 things, all kind of. We want to have you have the latitude to make a decision on 81 of those 87, and you're only going to vote on the important 6. Yes, sir.
Who has authority to fire the board? The president?
No, okay. Well, as soon as I get done with this, I'll explain that. So you're only going to vote on 5, 6, 7 things. 5, 6, 7 things, that's it. And then at the bottom of the agenda, it's other business. Other business. And in that other business, and one of those 5, 6, 7 things, the 7th thing or the last thing, is for you and the executive team has the authority to go out and pursue 10 million euro deals, etc., until the next board meeting. So you want to be given the authority to go out and act for the company until the next board meeting. Don't put a date down because you don't know what the next date is of the next board meeting. Now, when you're a big company like General Motors, etc., you have board meetings every other month because you got shit to discuss every other month. You may not have another board meeting for 3 months. You may have another board meeting in 1 month. You may have another board meeting in 5 months. It depends on your deal flow.
So you're talking about the operating agreement.
Well, it could be called the operating agreement.
That's what
Okay, well, I mean, but it all starts with the Articles of Incorporation or the equivalent thereof. What is the company been formed for, to do what, and how to do it? We are not a turnaround. You don't put that in the articles, but we're not looking for turnarounds. We're looking for things that cash flowing to grow bigger and to bolt on. We're not a turnaround deal. So in the Articles of Incorporation, it will say, like that thing on Star Trek, to go where no man's gone, to step behind. That's us. That's us. And the vote is at the end of the board meeting. And in this particular case, the GmbH, which are tough to put together, the notary not only has to read everything in German, he's got to read everything in English, word for word. So when they got to the German, I passed. I said, I give you my vote. I'm not going to sit and listen to it all over again in German. But he's got some great board members. He did it by the book. He did it by the book. And the guys that do it by, and I said, when a German does it by the book, I mean, it is by the book.
It was all video conference?
But no, we were there sitting in a room. And the 2 board members that don't live in Germany, myself and one English guy, both flew there. We fly there on our own nickel. You don't pay for them to come. None of that shit. The only thing is you take them, the right thing to do is take them all out to dinner afterwards. That's it. And you don't buy dinners, lunches, and breakfast for these fucking bums. You don't buy dinners, lunches, and breakfast for the acquisition candidates. That's from the fucking 80s. Josh meets him in a Starbucks. I swear to you. Starbucks, he's got them lined up. 15 deep. Okay, next. Now, next. At Starbucks. And he doesn't buy him any coffee either. So forget that buying. See, you're used to in bullshit sales is, oh, if I take him to lunch, I'll have somebody to go get lunch with, and I use my expense account, and maybe he'll buy, maybe he won't. Remember, the difference between a prospect and a suspect is somebody that'll talk to you. A prospect can buy from you, or sell to you in our case. So forget that lunch shit. Bring a fucking peanut butter sandwich. Eat it on the road.
Do you do seating arrangements in the meetings?
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was going to do that tomorrow, but okay, today. You go in for the meeting either at the accountants, lawyers, sellers, etc. There's a window in almost all board meeting rooms. You want the window to be at your back, just like gunfighters, sun at the back. That's normally the head of the table. Normally, they line up on one side, you line up on one side, you sit at the head. Always, you. And then you can have your lawyers, accountants around the corner, to the right.
Where's the chairman sit?
Well, the chairman's not, you only bring the chairman out for board meetings, the chairman sits at the head of the table. But you only bring your big guns, your big fucking hitters, out for the big fucking deals, because you don't want to wear them out. Now, I don't get worn out, but most guys my age, a meeting every 3 or 4 months is enough.
Do you buy the chairman lunch?
You buy nothing.
For the chairman?
Nothing. Now, when you go out and see the chairman by yourself, you pick up the bill. But I don't like anybody buy me. I don't even want you to buy me a fucking coffee. Not a water. I bring my own fucking water. It's easier to put a bullet in your head when you haven't never bought me a coffee. Familiarity breeds contempt. Does everybody understand what that means?
Yes.
Well, you've lived your life that way. Because you can't be a pleaser without being a familiarity breeds contempt person. You don't want them to hate you, but you don't want them to love you. All you want is their respect. You got that? Can you spell? Hey, R-E-S-P. You got that? Okay. And it's the antithesis of how we be. No, not me. My dad never told me he wanted anybody to love you. Respect. Because respect connotes leadership. Come on, remember the guy with the whistle? Come on, lads, we're going over the top. Boom, 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 boom. When you blow the whistle, you want them, you demand them to follow you. Remember, the board's there to govern. You're there to lead. Big fucking difference. Big fucking difference. You're there to lead. It's your way or the motherfucking highway. And you're not there to convince anybody. And it's the antithesis of almost all personalities that have come through the program in the beginning. Now, every once in a while, maybe 10% or 15% of the time, I turn them into a real fucking Hitlers. I mean, they like being in charge. They like being boss. They like being on top.
Do you need to take minute?
Thank you. Board meetings all have minutes, and you have a trusted, loyal Goomba taking minutes. There's minutes, and then there's minutes. And normally the corporate secretary takes minutes. Normally that would be a lawyer, but in this case, if you've got an assistant, not your wife, I don't mean shit like that, but you have somebody taking minutes, and then they show you the minutes, and you change them around, or not change them around, but add things they may have forgotten, and then you send them out to the board members for their comments, as I told you. Then it comes back to you. Then you send it out to your chairman for comments. Then you send out the final agenda, or the agenda both, and the minutes after the meeting. Normally you get the board minutes for a board meeting, minutes maybe 2-3 weeks later, because it's got to go back and forth to various people. But those are the records that you will stand or get buried if and when you go to court. Well, I see here on July 1st, Mr. Peña, so-and-so on the board said this was a stupid idea. Well, that would never get into any of my minutes. I mean, we ironed it out. There was no stupid idea. But the minutes are important. Thank you for bringing it up. The minutes are important. But controlling the board is more important than the minutes. Minutes support your control of the board. Legal, moral, ethically. Now, when the board meeting starts, you say, we will not be following Robert's rules. This is an important sentence. We are not following Robert's rules. Robert's rules are the Bible, the definitive Bible of governance of board meetings. We don't follow them. And coincidentally, a mentor of mine in the school you got to explain about was a co-author of Robert's Rules. And so I've known about Robert's Rules for 50 years. But we don't follow them.
This is all on your stuff?
No, this isn't. You better take notes.
We will not be following.
Yes, it's on one of the it's on the gigs, but it's not under Robert's Rules.
What was the second part?
It's on webinars.
What?
This is on webinars.
Yeah, it's on your gigs. It's there. It's someplace on the gigs. Well, you get this. So I mean, the and it's really not an abbreviated Robert's Rules. Robert's Rules are like the Germans' board meetings. We followed Robert's Rules. There's the right way, a wrong way, and a German way to run board meetings. And because there we have a supervisory board. I'm not going to go into it, but we actually have two boards, a supervisory board and an executive board. And the supervisory board is, which is the thing I'm chairman of in this particular instance, is they watch over the executive board to make sure they don't, it's overkill. It's overkill. It's very effective, though. It's very effective. It's very effective to precluding fuck-ups. Yes, ma'am.
Did I understand this right when you said that the minutes are sent out to every board?
No, those minutes are sent out to all the board members. Any additions, deletions, any comments, blah, blah, blah. Then they send them back to you. Then you give them to the chairman, and he looks at them. Okay, then he sends it back to you, and then you send out the final draft of the minutes 10 working days before the board meeting, which is roughly 2 weeks, 10 working days. And so they will have a copy. Some of the board members will bring a copy, but you'll have a folder in front of them, a little, not necessarily leather bound, but plastic bound or cardboard bound or some shit, where you got the papers that you're going to vote on, the documents, and I mean, it may be that thick. If you're buying a company that's got an operating agreement with IBM, that fucking operating, although I wouldn't read the operating, that operating agreement would be 300 pages long. And so they'll have a folder, and it'll be either, as Andrea said, you'll meet. You can meet at your accountants, meet at your lawyers. In this particular case, we met at the lawyers, and he was running around at the last minute because he met with the board members before he picked me up, and then we went to the wrong address. I mean, for all the planning we did, we went, and it was pissing down rain. I mean, lashing it down, as Sally would say. And we go to the wrong fucking building. And Andres, I'm sure you were embarrassed taking me to the wrong building after we walked 3 kilometers in the fucking pissing down rain. But we got there. We got there early. And Germans are always early. I never been to a meeting where a German was ever late. Normally they come 2 days early. I mean, planes may not be flying. Remember when up in Iceland when there was the volcanoes and all that shit? We had a seminar. The only people that showed up for the seminar were the 13 Germans. They came by, this is exaggerating, rowboat from Germany. They hit the White Cliffs of Dover that Hitler never did. Not one single German missed that seminar. Every other race, creed, nobody. I mean, nobody. You couldn't fly. You couldn't get any place. All the Germans found a way to get here. I'm telling you, we're lucky they didn't wake up Hitler. And they just let the little psychopath sleep in his nap. Yes, sir.
How many board members must vote to pass in?
Well, you have to have you have to have a majority, but you don't want
They could just not show up.
but then they have to give a proxy. A proxy.
But we don't want that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a majority, but you don't. And for those of you that have and you're on the board, so you have 6 board members, and you theoretically that could be a tie, but there's no ties. In a QLA board, there are no ties. In a QLA board, there is no abstention of voting. A QLA board, the worst case scenario is they're sick and they give you the proxy to vote for them. That's the worst case scenario. Yes, sir.
Can I just clarify something that Andres said earlier?
Okay, and you can always go to Jersey, the tax haven that he hides, stealing money from people where he lives. Okay, go ahead.
So he said the first deal he did was 100% seller finance.
Correct.
And he got the law firms giving the 20% discount on fees.
Well, that has nothing. They're mutually exclusive, those two facts.
But then he said he had to pay the law firm after the first deal. And he said normally with seller finance you would knock it onto.
Okay, well, he's having his lawyers do the due diligence, but he didn't have his accountants do the due diligence. So the lawyers did do due diligence on the first deal. So that fee will be postponed because there is no money coming out of the first deal.
Oh, because he said he paid. Was it you misspoke then? He said he paid.
Well, I mean, he's not the first mentee that's misspoke on these fucking things. Okay, now they're nervous. No, he didn't. He's not smooth at all. But if you could have heard him speak a year ago, you'd think that he was retarded because he was nervous. Now he's smooth as shit in German. The board members, how does he sound in German? Oh, he's very articulate, Mr. Peña. And it's Mr. Chairman, nobody calls anybody first name. Nobody. After 7, 8, I think I told somebody, 7, 8, 9 drinks, we finished dinner, and then one of the guys says, I've heard that espresso martinis or an aperitif or some bullshit, you know. So then we started drinking espresso martinis. And then somebody's first name slipped out. They were calling him first name, not nobody else. Because he's junior. You can call a junior guy Andreas. But everybody else is, it's better, Herr Professor Doctor, Herr Professor General. I mean, that's how they refer to everybody. And almost everybody on that board is a professor, a college professor. And half of them are PhDs. And lawyers are considered PhD doctors. So I just say, yeah, Herr Professor. I call everybody Herr Professor. Very prim and proper, though. Very straight-laced. But you're not going to be that way. Unless you happen to be German and setting up a deal in Germany, then you will be straight-laced. But and some places are fucking loosey-goosey. You do a deal in Hawaii. They got the hula syndrome. You know? I mean, it's loosey-goosey. Yeah, there was yes.
In terms of the location, he met at the lawyers or accountants?
The lawyers were in Munich. Correct.
Is that the default that you should shoot for and ask your accountant?
No, I mean, you should not demand. You know, we're having a board meeting or I'm interviewing potential sellers next Tuesday and Thursday. Can I use your offices between 1 and 4? And 99.999 times out of 100, they'll say yes. A couple years ago, we had a law firm celebrating its 100th anniversary. So the whole that week that he needed to do meetings, they had old partners coming in from the old day, and they had no extra rooms and shit like that. So, but very seldom does that happen. I mean, almost, you can just matter of factly know that they're going to allow you to use the rooms. And they will. And they'll put on food, and they'll ask you, you know, we had, at that thing, we had a buffet lunch. They don't drink at these meetings anymore. Back in the good old days, up until about 2007, the last crash, they'd have, you know, alcohol. And then back in the 80s, you could smoke cigars and shit, you know, the good old days. Back in those days, they had partners' bathrooms. When you became a partner, you got the key to the partner's bathroom. And but that's all gone. That's all. Now you sit in a fucking cubicle like a fucking monkey, you know, and back in the old days, they had partners that had some balls. I mean, you know, you walk in. I remember a partner in Freshfields. His office was about this big, mahogany. He had a settee, a bar area over there. He had a jacuzzi. The stories about his jacuzzi, but anyway, he had a jacuzzi over there. Smoked big Cuban cigars. Always had a glass of port in his hand. But those are the good old days. Those days, the money, you make more money now, but as far as the benefits, extra benefits, those things are dead. Yes, sir.
Andreas's insulting line of, I'm not sure if you're the best firm for us or the best.
No, his lawyer said that.
Oh.
His lawyer, who's a top 5 lawyer in Germany, says, "What? Oh, no. You have your now. If they're Slaughter and May, or if they're Denton's, they are the top law firms, so you can't do this. But this is the top of a second-tier law firm. This is top second tier, and so that lawyer, which he's talking down to them. You're not as good as some others, but how can you equalize the fact that we would use you? And normally 20% off the fees is a good reason. Because in the beginning, up to 50 million euros, it's, everybody has about the same skill sets. It's when you want to do some really esoteric shit, cross-border, blah, 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 then some of the bigger firms have better expertise. Yes, sir.
What's the fallout rate for board members, and what events?
At that level, by the time you get there, 0. Deal, money, euro signs. Okay. Before that, knowing the boards are in transition, the deal the $5 million euro deal board you had will not be the 500 million euro board. Maybe there'll be still one guy left or two, for a couple of reasons. Number one, they probably made 10, 20 million bucks or 20 million euros, and that's enough for them, and they leave. That's a fair reason.
They are going to make more money and they leave?
No, because they never had 20 million, so they got 20 million. They go back to playing with their grandkids. They go back to playing golf. Okay. The more realistic reason is you throw them out because they don't like the workload. The guy that's doing 20 deals this year, he's working his people to death. Now they're making a lot of money, but now you say, well, I work around the clock for enough money, but you won't.
The same board, 20 deals?
Yeah.
Nobody's getting paid till they get their first deal.
Yeah. Well, no, his deals are mostly commercial finance, so they're getting paid on every deal. They're getting paid on every deal. Just a minute. And the board members will understand. First of all, they're not used to getting paid on deals. If you're on the board of Barclays or AT&T or SAP, you're not, every time you do a deal, you're not getting paid as a board member. So they're not used to getting paid. So the fact that you do seller finance on the first 2 or 3 deals, is no skin off their nose, because they're not used to getting paid anyway. But you explain to them, and it's in the scripts, you explain to them that, what the model is. One moving part, seller finance, 1, 2, 3, then commercial seller combo, mambo, you're having Coke and fries with it, and then, but the big deals, you will have, as we pointed out, you're going to have 10, 12, 15 million of equity in your NewCo. And so then when cash flow doesn't, and the bigger deals, rarely does cash flow fully cover debt service on the big deals. So at least now you can say, I got skin in the game. We're putting 10 million of our equity in this deal. And so then the banks, and I'm not doing it because they give you a lower rate. They do. It doesn't matter, 10, 20 basis points. It doesn't. What matters is getting the money when you want the money.
Cool.
To close the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the interest rates and the fees, and then you'll see on your closing statement, what's this advisory fee shit? And you'll think, I don't remember hiring the bank for advisory fee. You didn't. Or they say in this part of the world, you didn't. But they got to make money someplace.
So you're just flashing that money.
Yeah, but fine, just pay it. It's going to be a point. Fucking pay it. And then they know when it's Christmas time like now, and they've got 25 deals to look at, and you're 3 of them. Well, this guy doesn't argue about fees. Fuck, look at these 3 first. And that's not the way the bank should do it. It should be first in, first out. But that's not how it works. In other words, you bring a deal first, I should look at your deal. That's not how it works. You know, and that's when you got a 5th bastard cousin from Bucharest who is a teller in the Chicago branch of such and such, who's fucking the vice president in charge of credit. That's the time to pull the relative card. So they look at the deal. You know, give him an extra hump, sweetheart. You know, so he looks at the deal. That's when that works. It works. Well, actually, it works all the time. But at the year end, when they've got a lot of deals, I've paid $1 million and I've paid $500,000 3 different times for big investment banks to look at a deal. They're so crowded. $1 million to look at the deal. I was positive it was a hot deal, but they may say it's not hot, and that means I lost $1 million. I did it twice with Goldman Sachs and once with Lehman Brothers. Yeah. Here's $500,000. You got to look at the deal. Tell me, will you do it? Well, I'm all booked up, Dan. It's just $500,000. Keep it. If you don't like the deal, fine. Keep the $500, and I will find another bank.
As an advisory fee.
Advisory fee, just to look at the deal. You get their attention. That says volumes. These guys are positive. They're hot. If they're willing to pay me $500,000 to look at the cocksucker, then it gets their attention. It still works to this day. But when you don't have the 500 and you got to scrape around to get the 500, and you see the 500 leave your account to go to their account, and you got zero left, or you got a minus, and fuck. I remember the first time we did it, Charlie Soliday, God rest his soul, was the CFO, co-founder. He said, "God damn, Dan, I hope you're right about this shit. I mean, we're all in shit."
Why did they pass?
What?
Why did they pass on your deal?
No, they didn't pass.
Well, what did they do?
No, they don't. They've never passed. I know when to pay $500,000, when to pay $1 million. Okay, and they didn't pass. They've never passed on a deal that I've put up money. It used to call peekaboo money to take a peek at, but they've never.
How big of a deal?
Where's some fucking wood? Touch wood. The deals have always been accepted.
How big of a deal should go to?
Okay. And you won't need an IB investment bank until you're doing deals in the hundreds of millions. Now, you may have a board member, ex-Goldman Sachs partner. Okay? And he may say, it's below our threshold, but and once you get the Goldman Sachs seal on one of your deals, then that's the only deal you talk about. You sell off that Goldman Sachs logo. So you want to get, if you get KKR, and that's private equity, once you get a KKR, a Blackstone, or one of those big private equity firms, hedge funds, because those guys, there's like one of the funds is called Sequoia. It's out of Silicon Valley. They have a reputation of 2 out of 3 deals they do is a home run. 2 out of 3. Now that's fucking high. And they do a deal, or they're an investor or something in your deal. Sequoia, KKR, and Goldman Sachs are in our deals. Not lying. In our deals. Not this deal that you're looking at. You don't add that second part. I've had idiots like you in an email. Goldman Sachs, just what I said, are in our deals, in parentheses, but not this deal. What are you going to do? I can lead you to the trough of water. I can even stand on your head to make, but
Mr. Peña.
Yeah, but and the guy says, I didn't want to get in trouble for not telling the truth. Well, you're not in our deals. Is Goldman Sachs in one of your deals? Yes. Is the KKR in one of your deals? Yes. In our deals. You're not lying about anything. Okay. Andreas, right now he's trying to get 3 deals done at the end of the year. I mean, he's gone to the whip. I mean, I get emails every once in a while. But he's got a great active board members. Now, I want to talk about the difference between non-executive director, NED. Yeah, that's right, NED, and executive director, ED. Non-executive director are most of the people on your board. Meaning they can vote and act as a board to commit the company, but they can't act as individuals committing the company because they're non-executive. They're not line officers. The executive directors are your CEO, which may or may not be you, your CFO, and once in a while you've got a chief information officer or you've got somebody else. The non-executive directors are your chairman, or your in-house lawyer, your in-house accountant, your 1, 2, 3, or 4 industry experts. Those are non-executive directors. Now, most of the kids, they may be CEO for the first deal and then they find a guy to be interim CEO. Most of you, you call yourselves founding principal. You call yourselves business development director. Because your 95% of your time is spent on looking for money and deals. That's it. Looking for money and deals. And then once you've done a bunch of deals, you won't have to look for money. Money will find you, and then you only have to look for deals. And then when you've done a lot of deals, the deals will find you as well. But that's down the road. That's down the road. And then at some point, you decide when you're going to exit or not. And again, we let the market tell us. When I put out an email next time to exit or sell half and keep half, like I did for Bitcoin. Okay, I do that, 4 or 5 times every 2 or 3 years in different areas. When I see something that's overwhelmingly obvious to me, and normally I'm the only person that says it, but you can't have an algorithm for 50 years experience. It's more important than the 50 years experience is my thousands of transactions. That's really more important than the 50 years because some of you have 20 years experience. 1 year, 20 times. That's no big fucking deal. If a guy's got 20 years experience and he's done 6 deals and you're thinking about putting him on the board, next. The 20 years looks good, but 4 deals in 20 years, what, he been asleep? He was in a coma? Or, in a 20-year career, if you're a transaction person, you ought to be able to do at least 50 fucking deals. At least. Yes, sir.
So he had 3 deals coming in through the pipeline, and he had 3 banks set up?
Oh, no, at the end. Now, he had 5 deals come all at once. We had the board meeting. We decided on 4 of them. Okay. The one deal was 100% owner finance, the first deal he talked about. The next 3 deals of the 4, he had banks set up for finance that he had showed the deal, but he had already been to those banks. Oh, excuse me. He had been to those banks months before, warming them up. We'll talk about that in a minute. And now he bought them an actual deal, 1 deal for each bank, not all together. And they had all, they issued term sheets and so he had backups for those banks just in case something happens, goes sideways. And that's what he's pushing through. But commercial finance, in Germany, commercial finance takes longer. Remember I told you 6 to 10, 12 weeks? In Germany, it's 10 to 15 weeks because they check it over and it goes through the committee over and over. Fuck. But he's got enough time to get them done year end. And he's going to the whip. I think he's taking some vacation time. The whip. The jockey, at the end, he's going to the whip. And what are comments or questions about Andreas? He is smooth as apple shit now, baby shit now. He's not a salesman yet.
Good question.
Yes, sir.
Would you ever cross leverage owner finance to make the second deal happen, which is commercial finance?
Yeah, sure you can. Yeah.
Would you advise to?
No, I wouldn't advise that, but you want to keep them separate. You want to keep, you got a seller finance on $1 million or $2 million deal, first deal, right? Your second deal is $2 or $3 million, and it's going to be a commercial finance, probably a mix, commercial finance. By the way, these 3 deals are between 25 and 40% seller finance, with commercial debt. So he's mixing and matching now because they're bigger deals, and the bigger the deal, the less the probability that debt service is going to covered 100% by free cash flow. And free cash flow is, I mean, if your bank, let's say you've got a banking relationship, the bank says, we want you to keep $50,000 in your checking account. It's not part of the covenants of the loan. We just like to see it always a $50,000 balance. There are checking accounts. I don't have a checking account. I don't think I have a checking account. But I hear people talk about, I got a checking account. I got to keep $500,000 in the checking account. Non-interest bearing. Well, that's not free cash flow. Free cash flow is you can burn it in the fucking fireplace. That's free cash flow. There's such a thing as written covenants on your loan agreement and unwritten covenants. Unwritten covenants is, you got to keep the money there, but it's not in your agreement, loan agreement.